Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Some questions to start with. Number one, are our courts perfect? The answer is no. Number two, do our courts deserve protection from calumny, scandalization? The answer is yes. Number three, do you agree with everything that activist lawyer Prashant Bhushan says or believes, or do you believe that he is right with every case that he takes up in the court? The answer is you can choose to agree or not agree. That is not important. That is not relevant. Number four, are the courts right? Is the Supreme Court right in issuing a contempt notice to him, to Prashant Bhushan, in response to some of his tweets that the judges have found offensive? That is the question we are trying to answer. Of course, I will begin by saying that the answer is no. The answer to the third question from me would be that there are many positions that Prashant Bhushan takes that I disagree with. In fact, in principle, on many of the issues, I might have a view which is completely contrary to his. I think ideologically we are poles apart in terms of at least our economic view on the economy. That having been said, would I endorse his tweets? Some I would, some I may not. But would I endorse the great Supreme Court of India, the 30 plus of the wisest, the most respected people, men and women in India, not enough women, but men and women in India, summoning an eminent and prominent lawyer for tweets that they find offensive? Is that right or wrong? Is that necessary or unnecessary? Can it be useful or can it be counterproductive? Because remember, we had said in the very beginning that while our courts are not perfect, our courts do deserve protection from calumny, scandalization, etc., so they can carry on with their very difficult job without any fear or intimidation. Now, if you are in public debate, particularly if you are a journalist, which is the case with me, I have been a journalist for more than 4 decades and I have been at the receiving end of these laws, then two particular laws matter a great deal to you because they influence and they moderate or modulate the limits of your freedom of speech. One is the libel law, the law of defamation. Once again, there is civil and there is criminal. Many of us say that criminal defamation is wrong, it's an anathema. I agree with that, it should go. On the other hand, I also believe that the plaintiff or the victim of defamation also has right to a fair disposal under the law. So, civil defamation law should be strengthened and criminal defamation law should go. It has no place in the law book of a civilized democracy. Having said that, there is another law which is the contempt of court law, where we might have less of a leeway, simply because in a contempt of court case, you are at the mercy of the judges who hauled you in for suspected or alleged contempt. Because in contempt, it's not the state against you, it's not another plaintiff against you, it is essentially the court that is against you, and the court, while having hauled you in for contempt, then has to take a view on whether you are a contemner or not. So, when you go in front of a judge in a contempt case, you are at the judge's mercy. In fact, the Advocate General in the states, the Attorney General at the center, they become a kind of amicus curiae or the lawyer of the court. So, you have to find a lawyer from outside, and then it becomes a tricky thing because remember, the judges have a lot of discretionary power in these cases. And I will talk about some cases, but I will also tell you what exactly the law is. So, law of contempt also has two sections, civil and criminal. There is subsection 2B, which is civil, which is essentially to say that you are guilty of contempt of court if you willfully refuse to carry out an order of the court, or if you willfully refuse to carry out a decree of the court. The second part, which is subsection 2C, is more tricky. because that is criminal, and that says that is criminal contempt if you scandalize or tend to scandalize or lower or tend to lower the authority of any court. It is very wide. Now anything can be construed to be scandalizing or lowering the authority of the court. Then it says anything that prejudices or interferes or intends to interfere with the due course of any judicial proceeding. That's fair enough. I mean, if you try and sabotage a judicial proceeding in any way, that contempt I can understand. Number 3, it says if it interferes or tends to interfere with or obstructs or tends to obstruct the administration of justice in any manner. In a way, this is a bit like it's an offshoot of the two, it follows from the second, so I let it be. But this idea of scandalizing the court or lowering the reputation of the judiciary or lowering the authority of the judiciary, reputation is my word, it's not in the law. Now this is what the Supreme Court has used in this case, where they have now issued suo motu proceedings against Prashant Bhushan. Suo motu is when the court decides to do something on its own, and contempt usually quite often is like that. When someone else files for contempt, you don't worry so much about it, but the judges do it themselves, then you know that your accusers are the judges, and then you just go down on your knees and pray for justice and pray for their fair sense of what is correct, what is not, how much criticism or how much attack they will accept as legitimate, and what they will consider scandalous. That is now entirely up to them. Different countries have different views on it. America has almost no contempt law. Britain, the system has been very liberal. In fact, I will give you an example from Britain. That's a much quoted example. If you Google any debate on law of defamation, you will go back, it will take you in somehow to Lord Sidney Templeman, who died not long ago at the ripe old age of 94, and he was a great jurist. Now, what he said and what made him immortal is a line that he spoke that goes back to 1987. In 1987, the House of Lords, the judicial bench or whatever it's called of House of Lords, passed a final order on excerpts that the Observer Group in UK published from a book called Spycatcher. It's one of my favorite books. If you can check it out, you should see it. I'll show you the jacket on the screen. Now, Spycatcher was written by a man called Peter Wright, who was a former MI5 agent. Now, MI5, as many of you nerds would know, or spy fiction fans would know, is the internal intelligence wing of the UK government. MI6, as once again many of you will know, is what James Bond supposedly came from, that is for external intelligence. So Spycatcher is a delightful book, an insider's account, where Peter Wright actually lays bare all the mess in the intelligence system, but also lots of fascinating detail. If you ask me, and I am digressing, if you ask me, my favorite passage is a sequence which is a bit like, there is a suspicion that many of MI6's own people are double agents for the Soviet Union. This is the Kim Philby era. MI6 is holding an inquiry and interrogating some of these. MI5 thinks that MI6 is fixing these interrogations to protect its own. So MI5 bugs the interrogation room. That bugging gives them the evidence that yes, these interrogations are being manipulated and fixed for self-preservation. But there is a problem. How does MI5 now go to the government and say we have evidence, and the government says what's your evidence? Then MI5 has to admit that they bugged the interrogation room of their own sister agency. So that book has delightful detail like this, if you like reading that kind of stuff, which I do. But the important thing there was that British government said too many secrets had leaked in this. This was an insider talking without authorization. This was a violation of Official Secrets Act. So they wanted an injunction on the book. The book was first published in Australia and the US, but the Observer Group published excerpts from the book and stories based on the book that the that led to a prosecution where finally the House of Lords gave an order which said, look, now that this has been published, you can't have an injunction, but the observer group cannot take home any profits from this publication. So the observer group did not like that order, and the observer group in the Daily Mirror published an article, front page story, on this judgment, which had a picture of 3 judges in the House of Lords, the 3 lords, upside down, ulta, head downwards, with the headline, "You Old Fools." And another story had a headline, "Enemies of the People." Now that led to a furor. Should that be contempt or not? And that became a landmark case. So it did not become contempt. One, because British judges generally are quite tolerant when it comes to criticism. They take a very liberal view of the contempt law. But also Lord Templeman was asked about this, Lord Sidney Templeman, remember we just spoke about him, and he said, look, what can I object to? They've called us old fools. I am old, of course, that's a statement of fact. And if somebody thinks I am a fool, that's an opinion to which the person is entitled, although I don't agree with that opinion. So that statement from Lord Sidney Templeman became a kind of expression of judicial large-heartedness and judicial broad shoulders, and these are also metaphors that judges use all the time while taking a liberal view of contempt cases. If you want to read a little bit more of a reference on this case, then read Professor Faizan Mustafa's article in the Tribune, of which I will share a link with you. Very quoted this when he was talking about some other contempt cases, particularly in Meghalaya High Court, where a brilliant, fine editor in Shillong, Patricia Mukhim, had been hauled in unnecessarily and unfairly for contempt and actually sentenced till the rising of the court, but that order was later set aside by the Supreme Court. Once again making our point that the Supreme Court at the end of the day takes a liberal and large-hearted and broad-shouldered view of these situations. Now, I can tell you some of this from experience, because in the media, this is a professional hazard. I faced various kinds of contempt cases, lots of defamation, but contempt cases, some quite frivolous, some a little bit frivolous, some coming in from hurt egos of individual judges, in which case those judges themselves issue contempt notices. But in one odd case, particularly in one case, a bad case where a contempt was made out, I will tell you briefly these examples. So there was one particular case in which the Supreme Court, Justice Singhvi, in fact, Justice Singhvi, who delivered the 2G and other famous judgments, he summoned our correspondent Utkarsh Anand at that point, and the editor, as usual. Editor is always dragged in because the editor has primary responsibility for anything that's published, charging us with contempt for something that Utkarsh had quoted him as saying in the court. And this was something about his wanting a house and some facilities for a retiring judge who was getting a post-retirement job, namely as the head of the National Green Tribunal then. So the judge said that I never said it. Now this is a reporter's word against a judge's word. Who's going to be your witness? The brother judge will not be your witness, because the brother judge will not say my colleague said what he's saying he did not say. No lawyer, no official will contradict a judge. A reporter's word versus a judge's word, you know, you have no chance. So we checked out with the reporter. He had his notebook. In the notebook, he had taken copious notes and written everything up. So what do? When we have problems like that? We go to a Maharathi like Fali Nariman, because we don't want him to go fighting with the judge. We don't want big publicity out of these cases, but we want to resolve these. At the same time, keeping the principle in mind that this is our freedom of speech, that even if there is criticism, if it's healthy criticism and if it's factual criticism, it is not contempt. So he figured out the problem and he said that, look, this is to do with a judge's word against yours, reporters. He pointed to the reporter and actually pointed out to the reporter that when you come to the court, button up your shirt properly, because he was seeing, I think, a gold chain or something underneath his shirt. to be properly dressed. And he said that, look, if you just go and apologize and say you didn't say so and I wrote it all wrong, then he turned to me, Fali Nariman, and he said, then you stop writing below your masthead journalism of courage, because then you've surrendered. So I said, then Fali, what do we do? So again, a genius mind like his figured a solution out. He said to our reporter, to Utkarsh, you take your notebook, put it in a sealed cover. Keep a photocopy, but put the original notebook in a sealed cover. And I will draft an affidavit that will say that, my lord, I have no way that I can contradict you. I should not contradict you. If you are saying this, you must be right. But to show my sincerity and my accuracy, I am furnishing to you my original notebook in a sealed cover in which I have recorded you as having made these statements. Now he said it's up to the judge now whether he wants to open it or not, because if the judge opens it, then it becomes your word against his. But if the judge is sharp, the judge will not do it. And sure enough, Fali Nariman was right, the judge did not open it. So that was settled. But we also had a bad case in Chandigarh in 1996, and that was a case where one of our reporters mistook a court petition to be a court order. So somebody had filed a petition in the court pleading that all those appearing for competitive exams, all those appearing for board exams, university exams, should be able to get access to photocopies of their answer sheets and marking sheets by right, because these are their property. The court had held many hearings and the court had reserved judgment. It so happened that just a few days before the judgment was to come in, a story appeared in the Indian Express where I had become editor just 2 days earlier, saying that the court had already issued an order. That story was based on the petition. So our reporter mistook the petition for the order, and the judges got angry. They dismantled the bench. They said the case has been vitiated. They summoned us for contempt, and they were very angry with us. So Vivek Goenka, my publisher, my owner, and we went in from Delhi, our reporter from Chandigarh, our resident editor from Chandigarh. We were hauled up and treated quite rudely in the court by the bench of late Justice Jawaharlal Gupta and Justice Kaul. Several hearings. So finally, when it looked like the going was getting quite rough, and we really had no defense, because we had mistaken a petition for a judgment in a very contentious case at a time when the court was about to deliver a judgment, and court had viewed this so seriously that they dismantled the bench and they said they will hear this case all over again and there will be a fresh bench. This was really obstruction of justice, the way the court had seen it. So we thought we were going to be sent to jail. So we then pulled out heavy artillery. We got Ghulam Vahanvati, late Ghulam Vahanvati, to appear for us, and also Arun Jaitley. So both appeared for us in Chandigarh. A plane had to be chartered. Finally, our apologies were accepted. We were let go. But our reporter was given 3 months simple imprisonment, because the judges did not see it as an innocent mistake. They thought there was some mischief to it. When that happened, my publisher was angry and he said, I am not defending this reporter in a higher court. And I said, look, if a kid in your house in your family goes and has a fight with the neighbor's kid, do you let the neighbor beat up your kid? No. You talk to your kid inside the house, but you protect your kid from the neighbor. So we must protect our reporter. There was a lot of irritation in the organization. So I also went to Arun Jaitley, and Arun Jaitley said, I will appear for your reporter free of charge. So he appeared for a reporter free of charge in the Supreme Court, and I am sharing those orders with you from the High Court and from the Supreme Court. Under today's description, you can see that Supreme Court let go of him. Supreme Court said his apology sounds sincere. He should not have done it. There is no need to send him to jail. The Supreme Court even said that the High Court was hasty or too touchy in dismantling the bench, that the shoulders of the judges have to be broad enough to be handle these things. So only thing that the courts did not let go was a 2,000 rupee fine that the High Court has imposed on our correspondent, and they said that money should be contributed to the legal aid fund of the court. So once again, we got a very good open judgment, even while the proceedings were on in Chandigarh, and sometimes they were quite rude, because at one point Vivek Goenka was sitting like I am sitting now with his legs crossed in the court, and a court orderly was sent to slap him on the thigh so he would uncross his legs in the court. That rude. Justice Kaul at one point said that I remember an old senior of mine who used to say कि ये जो contempt की law है, ये एक बिल्ली है जिसको आपने थैले में बंद किया हुआ है. It's like a cat which you have in a bag by your side. जब कोई गड़बड़ करे, when someone makes mischief, ये थैला खोल के बिल्ली दिखा के उसको डरा दो. When somebody makes mischief, just open the bag a bit, let him see the cat and be scared. Then he will not do it, but don't get the cat to bite the person. So they got the cat not to bite me and Vivek Goenka and Kanwar Sandhu, but our reporter was caught in that trap, and then once again the Supreme Court let us off. So that tells you that Supreme Court of India has been as liberal with criticism, with the contempt law in public debate, as I would say the British courts, or as I would say Lord Templeman. So now to get so touchy doesn't make sense. Otherwise people like us have criticized the Supreme Court over cricket. We've criticized the Supreme Court over Rafale, that they should not even have admitted the case, where I would be on the other side of Prashant Bhushan. We have criticized them for putting a ban on dance bars, on bars and liquor shops along the highways. So many things. So much criticism goes on and on. So if this is pushed now, that will become the wrong precedent, because institutions run on their capital. Politicians run on political capital, professions run on professional capital, institutions run on institutional capital. So the Supreme Court's capital is its own stature. It's for the court to decide how fragile that stature is. If that stature is going to be hit by a couple of nasty tweets, I think this will be a big mistake, and the court will end up squandering a lot of that same quality, its institutional capital. And since my fascination with Hindi film music is well known, and also because most judges are about my vintage, most Supreme Court judges are about my vintage, so they might have some recollection of it. The 1969 film Do Bhai, starring Ashok Kumar, Jitendra Mala Sinha. Ashok Kumar acts as a senior judge, and there is a famous song from that film in Mohammad Rafi's voice. इस दुनिया में है दुनिया वाले, बड़ा मुश्किल है इंसाफ करना, बड़ा आसान है देना सजाएं, बड़ा मुश्किल है पर माफ़ करना. So it says that, look, it's an appeal to God, how tough it is to forgive, how easy it is to punish. So I hope the judges will keep that in mind while dealing with this case as well. Having said that, let me remind you that by the time you watch this, chances are that we would have reached a very important landmark on our YouTube channel, which is 1 million subscribers. So thank you all, a million thanks to each one of you, million wonderful people. You make all this hard work worthwhile for us, and you make us do better and better and work harder and harder. So please be there. May there be many millions more after you, but you are the first million, and you are so valuable. And because you are so valuable, and many of you have been suggesting something special, so tomorrow's Cut the Clutter will be a special at 7 p.m. where I will take live questions from any of you who wants me to ask anything. So this is almost like, this is like an Ask Me Anything session.